Hello everyone, Robert Saunders here, Dell Technologies, Environment as a Service. I've been chomping at the bit to show this demo. It's so exciting, all built with Dell Automation Studio and Blueprint Assist tooling. If you've seen those demos, all done from a local machine, and then I upload it to the Orchestrator, and this one is extremely powerful. Let's go through this flow here a little bit. There's the Orchestrator. It's going to provision a VM. Then it's going to use embedded Ansible to go out to the block storage, in this case PowerStore. It's also going to use embedded Ansible inside the blueprint to go out to PowerProtect Data Manager and add itself to a protection policy from a file perspective. And then of course PPDM also points to DDVE. So an environment as a service with compute, with storage, with backup, all done, full automation built with Blueprint Assist, and then deployed and managed with the Dell Automation Platform Orchestrator. So here we are, the blueprint deployment. I already have it uploaded. If you've seen those previous videos for Studio, you'd upload it, follow those patterns. And we're going to look at the sources here real quick just to show some of the embedded Ansible. Now, what can we do here inside the Orchestrator? If you've seen the previous videos, we can browse the blueprint here that's loaded up to the Orchestrator. We cannot edit here. Edit would be done with something like Blueprint Assist in your IDE of choice, and then you'd upload it back up to the Orchestrator after you've done your iterative testing. Now that's okay. I'm just showing here that we do have some Ansible embedded inside this blueprint. There it is. A bunch of different YAML files there, all packaged up together. Now we're going to do the environment deployment. Now this is way cool. So I'm going to pick a vCenter for this demo. It's actually another Dell private cloud ecosystem. Doesn't need to be, but I have a Dell private cloud ecosystem also deployed with the Dell private cloud curated blueprints. So I thought, you know what? Let's use that as a target. So I'm going to give the deployment a name. I have all the parameters already loaded into a JSON file. So I'm going to browse that. And now I'm going to load that. I see all the VM information scrolling through. There's ESXi. I have my private and public keys there that I'm pointing to. This is an Ubuntu OS that I'm going to be deploying. So all the secrets are kept inside the Orchestrator and secure. Network management, of course, I'm going to give it a static IP of .200. There's my block volume configs. I've got multipathing going on here, so you'll see that here in a little bit. There's the PowerStore credentials. And then, of course, the file system backup, which PPDM, you see the secret name there, and then it knows how to get to everything from that perspective. Very cool. So I've loaded it all up. I'm going to click deploy. Now, this entire deployment takes about, 13 to maybe 16, 17 minutes. So let's call it 15 and we're good. I've sped it up a little bit here. Now we're at the VM section. So let's jump over and we see this again. You've seen the previous demos. I had a VM template there that was cloned and stood up in vCenter. Now we're attaching the block storage. So we're going to attach the block storage using that embedded Ansible that we showed earlier. There it is. So a lot to work through there. That's perfectly fine. Now we're going to map that block storage, multipath mapping, to this virtual machine, this Ubuntu virtual machine. Over to the PowerStore, we see the host is now created on the PowerStore. Again, this is all done automatically, not doing anything here. There's the volume that's mapped. There's its worldwide name. And then final step, PowerProtect Data Manager. Let's go ahead and configure a file system backup configuration. So we're going to put the agent on the VM. So not only do we back up the initial boot volume in the file system, but any subsequent file systems we add will also just get pulled right into this. This is why it's nice to have the agent right there. Super powerful. Again, kind of everything as a service or environment as a service. Again, using the Ansible for PPDM. And there's the VM file system now mapped as an asset in PowerProtect Data Manager. That's pretty cool. Again, you could hand this off to a developer and they're ready to go in no time. Environment as a service, pretty much deployment, boom, there it is, complete. Everything green. Now let's go into this, let's SSH into this VM, and let's review this mounted storage. So we're going to take a look. There's the PowerStore. Again, it's multipath. So we have 4 ways to get to the storage right there. We see it's all configured correctly. It's 150 gig volume, except 4 paths to get there. We see also there is the PowerProtect agent that also is now running. That's why we saw the file system backed up in PPDM. And again, if I add more file systems, I simply restart this service and it'll pick them right up and be backed up there. Super easy to do. Now let's look at the multipath connections again. We knew those were going to be 4. There's another way to view them from an iSCSI ADM perspective. And now let's just map them. So we're going to make an ext4, all done. There's a volume, we're going to make a directory, and let's put a file in there just for fun. So we'll touch a file out there real quick. My test file text, there it is, all done. Browse into it, and then review the directory. There it is. And there's the multipath mapped as a mount inside the Linux OS. Now, if I wanted to restart PPDM, this would also get picked up, or restart the agent in PPDM in this VM, this volume would also get picked up. I wanted to leave the mounting like this outside of the demo. Now, again, to complete this demo, we did a lot of things there. We deployed a VM, compute, backup, and storage. Again, we can uninstall everything we did from the orchestrator. We install a dependency order, we uninstall in the reverse dependency order. Let's take a look at that. So here we are again, uninstall from default workflows. I've got the deployment check there that we just deployed. So deployment, workflow, uninstall. I'm going to click next right on through this. Perfectly fine to do. I see the uninstall has now started. This is great. So I select the execution, again, the reverse order execution. I'm going to find the uninstall. There it is. And it's doing everything. Let's pause here. Everything in reverse. Remember, PPDM was last. Now in this case, PPDM is first. Unmapping the storage, decommissioning the VM and removing it. There it goes out of vCenter, powering it off, and then of course deleting it. All gone, all cleaned up. That's pretty awesome, especially from an administrative perspective or an infrastructure as code or a sysadmin perspective. You like to be able to deploy and also clean things up from time to time. All components uninstalled successfully. Pretty powerful. Dell Automation Platform using the Orchestrator to completely deploy an environment as a service and clean it up as needed. It's removed from PPDM. There it is. And then in the PowerStore, the volume will remain because there are use cases where maybe you want to remount this volume again in another VM. Maybe you want to do that. If you wanted to also remove this, you could do that too using the uninstall workflow. I chose to leave it here just from a data perspective. I always like to make sure I double check, triple check the data before I remove it so I can always use this volume again in the future. But you could automate the removal of this also. Yes, could be presented to another host or simply removed. Super powerful. Love that. Environment as a service, Dell Automation Platform Orchestrator, built by Blueprint Assist. Thank you very much.